Well, now that it's been a few days since the landmark issue 1000 of Action Comics has been released, and I've had the time to digest it, I figured it might be kind of fun to just make a short little video, and I say short, and they're always short and end up being much longer, a short little video talking about how I feel about Action Comics 1000, what I liked about it, the things that I took note of, and then possibly how I feel Action Comics 1000 will be affecting the future of Superman and that last story that I know everyone's talking about. And let's face it, a lot of Superman fans are just downright afraid of what Bendis is going to do to Superman and his mythos. So I figured I'd make a video just kind of talking about all of those things. Now with Action Comics 1000, we see a whole slew of familiar names attached to the title. Names like Dan Jurgens, John Romita Jr., Marv Wolfman, Kurt Swan, Scott Snyder, Tom King, Jerry Ordway, Paul Dini, Jose Garcia Lopez, Brad Meltzer, and Jim Lee, just to name some of them. Now there were two very big main themes of Action Comics 1000 that I was able to spot. And main theme number one, as far as I could tell, was how Superman has affected the DC Universe at large. How thankful people are for him and for what he does. The fact that he goes out of his way every single day to do absolutely everything he can for the people of Earth. He loves his adopted world, and it's evident by how much he struggles every single day to do as much as he can for every single person. And he kind of laments at the fact that he can only be at one place at one time, and so he has to pick where he goes and try to prioritize, and that's difficult. You have to remember, he can hear all the way around the world, so he knows what's going on. So he has to prioritize between a tsunami over here, an alien invasion over there, and maybe something else going on over here. He has to prioritize between all of that. And so you really get a sense that the people really don't take him for granted. And that's not anywhere more evident in this entire issue than in the beginning, when the people are having a Superman celebration for him, and he doesn't want to be there because he's too humble to show up to his own celebration, a party that praises him, because that's not what Superman's about. That's not why he does it. He does it because it's who he is. He does it because it's the right thing to do. But yeah, theme number one was how appreciative the people were of Superman. But theme number two was equally as important to me, and that was the theme of how much Superman is inspired by the fragile people of Earth. In other words, Superman does what he does because he has the powers that he has, and he can do the things that he does. I'm sure that he would continue to do other heroic deeds with no powers. We've seen that in the past, but the fact that he has the powers that he has enables him to stop alien invasions and just do these miraculous things to keep the people of Earth safe. However, what inspires him is the fact that human beings don't have flight and invulnerability and these powers. In comparison to Superman, they're incredibly fragile. And he even takes note that in comparison to many of the other different species of life in the galaxy, human beings are amongst the frailest. The human race is a stubborn lot. They're a strong lot. They're a willful lot. And it's even under the worst of circumstances that the human race will still persevere, still struggle to persevere and do what is right, that inspires Superman. Because Superman not only sees the weakness and the perseverance under that weakness, but he also sees that humanity, as far as he can tell, is basically good. He feels like humanity wants to do what is right. And these things really inspire him. And that's the second theme of Action Comics 1000, that Superman is inspired by the human race, as much as the human race is inspired by Superman. I think that's a very profound statement, that someone with that much power is still inspired by people with very little power. But hasn't that always been a theme of Superman? That he's always said, I'm only here to help and I do what I can, but we all do what we can, and that's really what will make the world a better place? I do the things I do because I can, and you can do what you can do, and we'll all just work together. Now, as for my favorite story in Action Comics 1000, well, that goes to The Car. Illustrated by Oliver Coipel and written by Richard Donner and Jeff Johns, this story is no slouch. So basically what makes the story of The Car so interesting to me is that it picks up where Action Comics number one leaves off, in that we get to see the aftermath of the encounter with the green car and its driver. No longer is he just basically a faceless thug, but we begin to see a little bit of what makes him tick. To me, that's important because back in 1938, it was black and white. You were either a good guy or you were a bad guy, and very rarely were a villain's real motivations ever actually examined. It was a comic book, and the mindset back then was you didn't really need to. They're a bad guy. Let's watch a good guy trounce him. And that was it. Not only that, but Superman's character back then was as of yet unformed. Not only did he not have the slew of powers that he has today, he was very, very limited in the scope of what he could do, but he was also very much a loose cannon back then because, like I said, his character was as of yet unformed. He was still very, very new. So the Superman that we know today, that hopeful Superman, that patient Superman, that Superman that is compassionate and will take the time to try and talk to the people that he's dealt with or dealing with, didn't really exist back then. It was all Papa Spank and off we go. But here we see what happens after that. The car is in the shop, it's totaled, the guy is talking to the mechanic and he's like, what happened? And he begins to relate the encounter that he met up with this guy in a red cape and wears his underwear on the outside that smashed the car up and hung him up on a post, and the guy doesn't believe him. The mechanic, of course, doesn't believe him. We learn that Superman has taken the time to check up on him and learn about him and where he comes from and his motivations and that kind of thing. And basically, Superman wants to give him hope and forgiveness so that maybe he can do better next time. And it's the fact that Superman actually takes the time to talk to this fella and let him know, you're not stuck like this. I believe in you. You can be more. Transcend. And in that moment, we notice that Superman has bestowed upon that fella the one thing that he gives to all of us. Hope. Maybe he was like this back then, too. Maybe we just didn't see everything in 1938. Huh? My second favorite story is actually the one that was revealed online before Action Comics 1000 came out, and that's the one where we see Superman returning to a planet Earth set billions of years in the future, and I'm sure that the human race is somewhere doing something, but the planet Earth's time is up, the days are numbered, and he's there on the last day, and truthfully, he shows up almost every single year, and pays homage to the planet Earth, and there's a little plaque he's got set up, at the old spot of the Kent farm to honor his adopted Earth parents, John and Martha Kent. It's a beautiful story of love and endurance, and it was such a wonderful thing to think that long after Earth is no longer habitable by people, that Superman would keep coming back to the place that was his first adopted homeworld to pay his respects, year after year. And when he finally lets it go and flies off into space again, you know that it's final. Written by Tom King and illustrated by Clay Mann, that was my second favorite story in all of Action Comics number 1000. Now, truthfully, I enjoyed every single story in Action Comics 1000, but I don't want to talk about them all because I want you to go ahead and read Action Comics 1000. I enjoyed every single story. I thought the artwork was lovely in every single story. I don't think that anything was filler in Action Comics 1000. I also want to take note that we did get to see Bibbo Bibowski in the Jerry Ordway story. Of course, how fitting that Jerry Ordway would also be drawing Bibbo. It was so good to see Bibbo again, and I really hope that Bibbo becomes another regular character in the Superman mythos. Come on, bring back Bibbo as a regular. Now, all of those warm, fuzzy feelings that they've spent the entire issue building up in us, the reader, those feelings of hope and gratitude, are almost forebodingly overshadowed by the final story in the issue. In this final story, illustrated by fan favorite Jim Lee and written by controversial writer Brian Michael Bendis, we see things get very, very dark very, very quick. There's a brand new character introduced called Rogol Zaar, and he means business. He's very powerful. Superman has been fighting him and apparently having no real effect on him, very ill effect on defeating Rogol Zaar. Meanwhile, Rogol Zaar is batting Superman around like nothing. This is the point where they actually mention the fact that he has his trunks back, but they don't really give a suffice answer. They're just like, why has he got his trunks back? I don't know, he needs them. He's not him without them. And that's really kind of it. Where did he get them from? Did he find them in a box under his bed? Possibly the dryer finally spit them out from its magical portal where all the socks and underwear disappear to? No one knows, because they don't really tell us. So much for getting a real answer to the mystery of why the trunks returned. I'm happy they're back, but it would have been kind of cooler if there was just a little bit more story reason for them to return. Anywho, with the introduction of Rogol Zaar, we also learned that he is deeply tied to the destruction of planet Krypton. As a matter of fact, He's claiming to be the one that destroyed Krypton. He's claiming to be the reason it died, that it exploded, that the millions of Kryptonians perished. And he's claiming there was a purpose for it. His purpose. The purpose is he hates Kryptonians. He feels like the Kryptonians are a scourge on the galaxy and they need to be wiped clean. The universe needs to be cleansed of the Kryptonian presence. The final scene leaves us with Rogol-Zar and his sword. He's plunging it into Superman's chest, presumably into his heart, to kill him. That's not a very hopeful note to leave the wonderful, hopeful issue 1000 of Action Comics on, is it? Kinda foreboding, isn't it? Kinda leaves you with a sense of unsurety, doesn't it? Well, here's what I think about it. At first, it left a bad taste in my mouth. It still kinda does leave a bad taste in my mouth. But that's the me speaking, the selfish me speaking, the me that just wanted the whole thing to be a feel-good issue. Coming from a business perspective and a writing perspective, I think it was clever because they need to keep people interested and coming back for the next issue so that they can keep writing more stories. You create unsurety, you create mystery, and then people feel like they want to read more or watch more. Am I comfortable with this? No, of course not. I have to hope that he will have enough respect for this character and for the things that people love about him that he will leave most of that alone and do other things with the character. I have to hope that he loves him as much as I do for very much the same reasons that I would think that most of us do, and that we can hopefully trust him to not mess it up too bad. But Brian Michael Bendis is always very controversial, and people either love what he does or they hate what he does. There doesn't really seem to be an in-between. But the fact is, I don't know the future, and neither do you. None of us can see the future, so let's just hope for the best that he's going to give us some really cool storytelling and not mess it up. Anyway, those are my thoughts. How do you feel about Brian Michael Bendis helming Superman? Are you terrified? Are you angry? Have you just decided in your head he's gonna cock it up and that is it? Or are you gonna give him a choice to maybe do something right? Also in the comment section down below, tell me how many of those variant covers you managed to pick up. Did you get all 10 of the basic ones? Did you even manage to pick up a few of the retailer exclusives? Let me know down below, because I know I'm gonna spend the next 6 months buying up at least one of each of the retailer variants as well. I must have them all! And as a side note, why didn't they release a book to go with it that would have every single one of the variant covers, retailer and basic, as a pinup book? Man, that would have been awesome. And finally, if you liked this video, found it insightful, helpful, or a reasonable waste of time, hit the like button so I know that I'm doing something right. And if you think you might want to see more of my content, if you'd like to become a super friend and join the DC squad, well, just hit the subscribe button. Remember to ding the bell, because YouTube is kind of weird. Unless you ding the bell, it doesn't actually send the videos out to you half the time. And I'll see you next time with the next video. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome day.